Kris Kobach is Secretary of State in Kansas and a Donald Trump supporter, and he joins me now from Topeka, Kansas. Kris, I just asked Major for sort of the reaction from within the Trump camp, so I give you the opportunity. Your reaction to the day Donald Trump had yesterday?
I think it was a great speech. Indeed, it was a historic speech. I can't think of any time in my lifetime where a president has really laid out the illegal immigration, president or a presidential candidate has laid out the immigration problem, the illegal immigration problem, and laid out so many specific solutions to it. I mean, if he does everything in his list of 10 solutions, the illegal immigration issue is going to be a thing of the past. And he can get a lot of that done just through executive action, by the way.
Well, you mentioned that he laid out specifics, but there were certainly some questions that were still left. He mentioned a deportation task force that would quickly remove the dangerous criminals. He put that number around 2 million. But what about the undocumented members that did not commit any crime? So we're talking 9 to 10 million people. What does he do about them specifically?
Well, he said very specifically, he said, if you come here illegally and you want legal presence, you have only one option, and that was his quote: return home and get in line behind the others and apply to come into the United States legally. And then he said at the very end,
excuse me, how do you make them go home? People are not going to volunteer and just say that they're going to leave. So how do you get them to go back to where they came from and then try to reapply for citizenship?
Well, Mr. Trump talked about that too. He said he's going to triple, not double, but triple the size of our ICE deportation officer force, which is huge. And those people are going to be out there deporting people. He said we'll be enforcing all of our immigration laws. That means enforcing immigration laws in the workplace. And he said he's going to have E-Verify try to push Congress to make it nationally mandated. We've got it in 5 states right now where it's mandatory. That means all the employers have to check on the internet and verify that someone is authorized to work. So to summarize the answer to your question, you've got a tripling of the immigration forces, you've got worksite enforcement, and you've got E-Verify. It's going to be really tough for illegal aliens to get a job in the United States under a Trump plan.
Tripling that ICE staff was one thing, 5,000 new Border Patrol agents, and then also that immediate deportation, around 2 million right away. I believe he said within a matter of months of taking office if he were elected. Where does that money come from?
Well, it would have to be appropriations to the Department of Homeland Security budget. I mean, the Department of Homeland Security has a very large budget already. Right now, however, and I've represented ICE officers in court, so I can say this with some authority, many ICE officers are being forced to sit on their hands, not do what they were supposed to do, which is go out and deport illegal aliens. So you've got some unused resources right now, which Trump can bring to bear, but he's also going to be asking Congress for some more, I assume.
He also said that he would want the undocumented illegal immigrants to leave the country and return lawfully. And I know you just mentioned how that he would want that to happen, but how does that process work as far as a timeline? If we're talking about people being removed from their families, how long of a time are we looking at?
Well, it depends on the country, first of all, but it means going home, and in some places in the world, you might be able to get in line and be back within a year. But in other places, you might be talking about waiting a couple of years. And in a situation like that, ideally, the individual's whole family would go together. In fact, I know of cases where the whole family has left and they're waiting to come back in.
I keep hearing the word humane when this is spoken about from Donald Trump. Is that a humane thing to remove a child that was born here in this country because he or she's parents were brought in here illegally?
No, you don't remove the child. The child is not.
You're saying the whole family is going to go. No, but
if a parent.
You're saying, yeah, if a whole family wants to leave.
Right, and so what ICE already does and has been doing for years is if you have a situation where the 2 parents are here illegally, ICE will take steps to help them keep their family together while they leave and then while they reapply to come back. You know, we can't just say because a person successfully had a child in the United States that his immigration law breaking is therefore forgiven. So ICE has tried to work humanely, and Donald Trump said that again last night, that we will be humane and we will be kind to our visitors, and including those who are here illegally, but we will insist that our laws must be enforced.
He proposed an ideological certification test to ensure that immigrants share our values. It was part of the extreme vetting that he talked about, and even said that immigrants would be brought into this country and given citizenship based on merit, skill, and proficiency. Critics this morning are saying that is contrary to what this country was founded on. and in fact the American values, those values that he referred to. What's your response?
I think those critics are wrong if they would read their history. The Alien Act of 1789, one of the first laws that the first Congress passed, talked about the president having the authority to exclude and remove aliens from the United States who were a threat to the security of the United States. And you know, I think the ideological vetting is something also that we have a history of doing. In the Cold War, there was an effort to keep out people who were agents or sympathizers with the Soviet Union. And hey, I don't think many Americans would disagree when Mr. Trump says, if you think women are property, if you think honor killing is okay, we don't want you here in the United States. And I imagine 99% of Americans would agree with that.
You mentioned the threat to the United States, that would be a reason, but merit, skill, and proficiency, how does that play into being a threat to the United States? If you come here, I know many people last night on Twitter were just referring to the idea of my parents who were immigrants from Ireland who had no skills and came here for a better life. They would not have been allowed in.
He was talking about merit, skill, and proficiency in a slightly different part of his speech where he talked about legal immigration and people who get green cards to come to the United States. Right now, the vast majority of our green cards are going to people who don't have any particular skill. All they have is some family relationship to somebody already in the United States. He's saying we've got to reorient the way we divvy up those green cards and start looking at people who can bring skills to the United States. And, you know, to be sure, 100 years ago, absolutely, there was no skills test and there were no numerical limits either. But, you know, now we are a country that has to be able to pick and choose who can come to the United States. It's not up to them, it's up to us.
I want to turn to his meeting with Mexico's president before we let you go here. According to Trump's account of the visit, they didn't discuss the idea of who would pay for the wall. And then obviously we heard from Peña Nieto later, who said that he told Donald Trump that he told him that Mexico would not pay for the wall. Did you want to see Donald Trump perhaps be a little tougher in a stance that he has had since he launched this campaign?
Well, in his speech afterward, he was every bit as tough as he's ever been. When he talked with Mr. Nieto, well, I think at this point it's a little early, right? He isn't president yet, so for him to go in and start negotiating, okay, these are the terms by which Mexico would help pay for the wall, you know, I think it's probably a little premature to do that. But he's certainly laying the groundwork. And one of the really incredible things is they came out of that meeting, and it sounded to me like the Mexican president was acknowledging that a wall is an appropriate thing and that strengthening border security is also appropriate. That in and of itself is a kind of achievement, I think.
Kansas Secretary of State Kris Kobach. Kris, we appreciate the conversation.
My pleasure.